Complaining about when my dad was in Vietnam, there was 60,000 people a month.
60,000 total. I'm ballparking it.
Around there. I mean, you know, like literally, I mean, like people like 3 people this month died. It's an absolute tragedy.
I agree with that. I agree with that too.
It's a personal tragedy for those families. But when you look at the scale of war,
it's really not much of a war.
It's really not much of a war.
Anyone know a ballpark number of how many deaths there were? I mean, that had to be a lot.
Oh, if you count the Jews and the civilians.
Well, I mean, even military was. I know Russia lost.
Russia was nuts. 2 million?
Yeah,
more.
They were charging in and dying.
Russia was nuts.
I've heard like bad shit about them. Like they would send their troops out in waves. Like, well, they did like kind of.
They didn't have enough guns. They would give guns to like every other person.
When that guy dies, pick it up.
Yeah. Here's a bullet for your person.
That was an enemy at the gate. That was fucking real. And they were really defending the rubble of Stalingrad because it had the name of Stalin, and so it was considered like too important to let the Germans take. So they fought over like ruins.
And they were saying like that one of the main reasons that Hitler hated Stalingrad so much was because it's like a Jewish name or something, Stalingrad, or it's like something to do with that. He hated the name or some shit, and like
I don't know.
There was other points.
It was insanely crazy.
It was also
everything was about the Jews, so it was entirely possible, to be some sort of like.
Part of me is so proud of America. I don't mean that even ironically. So proud of America that we've gotten to a point where 3,000, 6,000 probably now casualties in Iraq is seen as this gigantic tragedy. And I respect a culture that has gotten so relatively enlightened that can be seen as a horrific war, because it's just not a horrific war.
No. By the standards of wars.
Any historical context.
From literally any historical context. I have a question, and it's kind of going to be a monster. But is lack of war a reason that our economy sucks? I mean, war is normally just a giant profit machine, and now we use drones. So now we have all these reasons not to put people in combat. So and so from Santa Maria, they died. They were in Afghanistan. Again, going back to lines of personal tragedy, and not just outright tens of thousands of people dying. Is the fact that we no longer need the manpower in the U.S. of significance to our economy, because there's so many people in life that are only equipped to go to, that's all they can do. They don't have the skills otherwise.
In relation to the post-war, and when you say post-war, you generally mean 50s America. The post-war golden age, yeah, absolutely. That's a huge part of why that was such a golden age of America, was because there just weren't all that many people left, and there was every single, and I hate to say there weren't many people left, because in a national context, not that many people died, but every single person that was left, they got to the point where all of the people that would have been unemployed were just dead.
Well, no, it's not. I think you're wrong about that. I think what it was specifically the World War II was so large, the entire country had to essentially mobilize. So everyone, during
I would have joined World War II.
Everyone,
if I wasn't a big fat guy with that knee.
And what I mean was the entire country. It didn't even, and I don't even necessarily mean joining the war. If you were a farmer, you were making food.
Fucking Joe to fucking Maggio was like the first in line.
If you were a farmer, you were making food for soldiers. If you were a woman, you were working in a factory making airplanes for soldiers. If you were running like a scrap metal yard, you were giving scrap metal to the army so they could make tanks or bullets or whatever. The entire country.
I want to put an asterisk on this, and I want to let you finish, but I want to make a point after you're done.
Okay. Oh, so after the war was over, the companies
the companies that made a lot of money during the war, which were general industries, companies like Boeing, they made military aircraft. They had so much money and so many specialized people, they were able to transition into a fairly large post-war economy. And thanks to the GI Bill, we had a lot of super educated engineers and accountants and scientists that were all
they took care of the vets back then.
And so we had an enormous practically trained post-war economy. The problem is that we were much more of a manufacturing powerhouse. So
it was an industrial nation, not a post-industrial
right.
nation.
We're a post-industrial nation now. So essentially the companies that are specialized in wars and military industrial complex make an enormous amount of money. It's very good for their economy.
Blackwater.
Blackwater. I mean, a special forces trained former Blackwater soldier makes like $150,000 a year. And that's a soldier who's doing, guard stuff overseas.
17,000 in the military, 150,000 private.
It's more than 17, but I mean, it would be.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The point stands.
Yeah. It's an enormous difference. And I mean, you saw the units. I mean, they talk about the economy.
I almost take to say, but yes, that's where my point came from.
Yeah. Where it was and so we don't. The problem is that war is completely separate from the rest of the economy. So the backwash, there is no backflood back to the civilian side of the economy. We have two separate. We have a computer-based, service-based economy, and then all the guys who fight. It's not that they don't have. They're too divided, so there is no crossover in between them. And I think that's the reason why we haven't seen an increase in modern day economics as a result of the $1 trillion we spent in Iraq.
I can't find anything there to disagree with.
Well, we made a shitload of our money in World War I. We made all of our growth in World War I because we sold weapons to the British. We supplied them with battleships and things like that in exchange for naval bases and islands. You got land back that were key military strategic pieces moving forward.
World War I was early industrial.
Yeah. The other thing, part of the reason why we had such a strong post-war economy was Europe had been so devastated they had no industrial base, so we were essentially rebuilding them. Problem is Europe is caught up, China is caught up, a lot of poorer countries.
We're still just now coming out of the repercussions of fucking World War II.
China?
The world.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. And someone says the problem isn't that the U.S. is becoming weaker. We
were just the least affected by World War II.
Right. The U.S. wasn't becoming weaker. The problem is everyone is catching up.
We bitch about Pearl Harbor.
Right.
my asterisk, and it was just an anecdote, not even a point. It's just an interesting thing. As to emphasize the large impact World War II had on the economy, Coke and Pepsi, or Coca-Cola, came out of World War II so strong because they had special contracts with the military to be allowed to continue using the amount of sugar necessary to produce their soft drink, where every other soft drink manufacturer basically had to close down because sugar was being rationed, everything was being rationed, and Coca-Cola, because it's fucking cola, the soldiers needed some reminder of home, and that was one of the big ways. Most of the Coke in the 40s was shipped overseas, the Pacific theater, the European theater. So they were allowed to produce and profit from World War II. Pepsi, by a completely different strategy, was able to compete at the same time, being the Apple to Coke's Microsoft. Because the person who ran Pepsi at the very beginning had a little company where he made candy, a remarkably unsuccessful candy. Unsuccessful being the key is the ironic part, where he had these candies that nobody wanted to buy, but that had fucking sugar in them. So he had this entire warehouse full of these little peppermint sugar candies that nobody had any